A common saying in the cinematography world is to invest in lenses, as camera bodies will only last you a couple of years, but a great lens could last you for your whole career. And although that is true, camera manufacturers are still trying to make sharper and better looking lenses. But in their quest to get the most realistic looking image lies a problem. Are modern day lenses too perfect? Back in the day when they made lenses, they didn't do them the same way as modern lenses. Vintage lenses are more washed out and have intense flare, something that defined their vintage look, while more modern lenses have more contrast and control flare much better. Vintage lenses tend to be more soft compared to their modern counterpart. But what people tend to like about vintage lenses is not their perfect imagery, but in the contrary, it's their lack of perfection that adds character to their look. This is my friend Emmerich, and he just so happens to own this old Russian film camera with a Helios 58mm vintage lens on it. So me and him, we decided to adapt it on a mirrorless camera and go and test it out. Now this lens is known for its interesting swirly bokeh. The swirly bokeh gives it a unique look that otherwise can't be reproduced on a modern day lens. If we compare this Helios lens to my Sigma 56mm, we can see how the bokeh fades out and swirls compared to the Sigma that is straight and perfectly round. The shadows of the vintage lens also helps with the dynamic range, making the modern lens look underexposed in comparison. Now depending on the project that you are doing, you might change your style of color grading. Not every project requires a teal and orange color grade. The same applies to lenses. Although two lenses might have the same focal length, that does not mean that they'll have the same look. A sci-fi movie might use an anamorphic lens as opposed to movies set in World War II might go for more of a vintage look. Different lenses will give different looks and different projects require different lenses. Now more modern lenses give a sharper look, and sometimes that is what the project requires. Although overly sharp footage might look more digital and less cinematic, some projects require that look. And so we should not see the characteristics of a vintage lens as the end-all be-all. Instead we should just see it as a different option for a different look. Now what's interesting is that you can actually add character to a lens. With this simple cutout, I created an anamorphic look. You can shape the bokeh of a lens by cutting out a shape and placing it in front of a lens. This gives character to a lens that would otherwise have a very boring look. Something that people like to do is to use black pro mist filters to give their footage more of a dreamy look. You can also just add fingerprint smudges on a UV filter and get the same result. I think this is where modern lenses shine. Their sharp characteristic lets us destroy what was once perfect to give us the characteristics of the imperfect. Although you can change the characteristics of a lens, you still can't get the swirl that a Helios would give you, as the characteristic of a lens is defined by the glass that's inside it and not what's in front of the lens. Still though, a modern day lens does give you more option, and it's easier to soften what is sharp, but it's harder to sharpen what is soft. Modern day lenses are known for their overly sharp footage, but what they lack is character. And although going back to vintage lenses will give you back that old tiny look, you can still add character to a modern day lens to fit the current project that you're working for.